The entirety of Belgian airspace has been closed due to drone sightings over all of Belgium's major airports. But is that actually the least troubling drone problem that Belgium is facing right now? Just who is flying these drones? It's not that hard to figure out. I'm Paul, U.S. Army combat veteran. Let's talk about it. Hit subscribe, by the way. Now, the Belgians, well, they have actually closed another one of, really both of their airports after a wave of drone sightings over the last 48 hours or so. And this, again, is a really sign of just how severe the problem is. Brussels airport is closed. There are currently no flights landing or taking off. The smaller Liege airport was closed after drones were flying over that airport. And a spokesman for the Belgian Air Traffic Control Service said that around 7 p.m., a drone had been seen near the airport, and the airport had been closed as a security precaution. Now, this is interesting because, again, you also have seen in September, Copenhagen Airport and Oslo Airport were also closed as a result of drone sightings. But we've known for quite a while that Russian-linked intelligence agents, or at least individuals acting on behalf of Russian intelligence, were operating these drones and attempting to, in some ways, reconnoiter the capabilities of infrastructure, sure. But what's interesting is that it's not really hard to figure out the operations of the Belgian airport. And so this, I think, is the more interesting story. Why fly drones over civilian airports like this? Well, what I think this is actually a test of is less about the getting a close-up look at the infrastructure of these airports and more about testing the response. We've heard a lot of strong language from the European Union about drone incursions into their airspace, particularly, most obviously, in the case of Russian attack drones, Russian combat drones flying into Polish airspace, as well as Russian aircraft flying into Baltic countries' airspace. But this is another test of what are the defenses of the European Union? What is the European Union willing to do to stop these drone overflights? We know that Russia is actually going so far as to deploy their own military reservists to act as drone defenses for their critical infrastructure in particularly oil and gas. But the big question that a lot of Russian analysts probably want to know is what can the European do? And what are they willing to do to, thwart, to stop this? Is there an immune system? Are the Europeans able to, right? Because at some point you go, Russia's trying to figure out, where's the line between the Europeans saying, I'm not going to react and I can't react? Again, at some point, right, you say, I just don't want to fight this guy. But at some point, if they continue to be aggressive, you're going to have to realize, you're like, oh, this person literally can't fight me, right? And this is one of the reasons I think the answer seems to be leaning towards that Belgium may literally not be able to fight back, because drone flights have been flying also near an airbase, and a really troubling one, because an unidentified drone was spotted at a military base where U.S. nuclear weapons are stored. And the Belgian military has said they're probably part of a spying operation. Right? Drones had flown in the area near Kleinbrogel Air Base in northeast Belgium on both Saturday and Sunday night. The first phase was small drones to test the radio frequencies of Belgian security services. Then came larger drones to destabilize the area and people. This, he said, it resembles a spy operation by whom I don't know. I have a few ideas, but I'm going to be careful about speculating, right? Franken ruled out the possibility that the drone flights were a prank because he said, quote, security services drone jammer didn't work because they tested our radio frequency and changed the frequencies. They have their own frequencies. An amateur doesn't know how to do that. So that is a sign that this is a military, a state actor who is capable of understanding that, hey, you guys may have drone jammers, but once we know what frequencies they're operating on, we're just going to hop over. And that is something that we've seen Russia evolve, certainly in the course of its war with Ukraine, where Ukrainian jammers are always in a cat and mouse game against Russian FPVs and vice versa. They're always trying to figure out what frequencies are being jammed, what frequencies they can operate on, and how they can further sort of stay ahead of each other. The fact that they did this in 2 phases, one was clearly meant to identify frequencies of jammers. The second one was a larger drone that was engaging in either spying or, as he says, destabilizing. It again is the Russians saying, listen, it's both a message by the Russians to saying you can't stop us, you're powerless to stop us, but also it's a test to say, okay, if we beat their jammers, what do the Belgians have next? What's next in their layered defenses? And the answer is, again, appears to be nothing. When asked why it was not possible to shoot down these drones, Frank had said, when they're over a military base, we can shoot them down. When it's nearby, we have to be very careful because they can fall on a house, a car, a person. That's completely different. It's not clear. He says it's not entirely clear. We have to clarify the legal grounds. So again, before shooting down a spy drone, the Belgians have to check with the lawyers. Again, like even the defense minister is lamenting that Belgium is chasing after the threat, which I think in American English we'd call it lagging behind the threat posed by drone flights. He said we should have bought air defense systems 5 or 10 years ago to deal with these drones, right? Again, they referenced the story that we covered, that several drones were detected above another Belgian military base near the German border. Again, the operators remain unidentified. So this is, again, just, I think, part of a larger and in some ways more troubling campaign by, and almost certainly Russia. Russia is the only country with the technical expertise and the geopolitical expertise to really do this. There's a small chance that China would be really interested in U.S. nuclear posture in Europe. That's something that China certainly always wants to know as much about as possible. But again, in terms of the know-how, it's likely Russia. And remember, just because Russia is operating it doesn't mean that China doesn't also have that information, right? These are countries that are engaged in significant cooperation. And we see a Belgian police officer was recently charged with spying. He was actually a member of the Brussels local police who was co-opted because he has access to European diplomats by an intelligence agency, which they actually said is probably China. The charges initially relate to spying for China, but they also are investigating whether he additionally spied for Russia. And this is fascinating because, again, this is classically part of that no limits partnership. And it's a really, Russia and China, they're not going to share all information and intelligence with each other, right? They're not the Five Eyes. They're not total, absolutely like locked in partners. But what they do say is, listen, if it's not going to hurt me to share this information with you, I will. And in some cases, a country like Russia may say, listen, we've spent 2 decades building out a sprawling intelligence network inside of the EU. And China, they say, China, you want to learn more about Brussels policymaking, and you say it's going to be really hard for us to do it, right? There's a lot of issues. And Russia goes, listen, we've developed this network. You guys are helping us out so much. Continue to help us out, and we'll use our network to try to get information that you may want. And so to sit there and go, oh, it's Russia, it's China, it doesn't have to be one or the other, right? It's an adversary collecting information and then using that information to their benefit. And that information could benefit the country directly. Russia could say, we want to know about their nuclear posture. We could say, we want to know about the U.S. nuclear forces in Belgium. And we're going to learn everything we can. And we're going to share selected tidbits with the Chinese because the Chinese are really curious, and we can share it with them as a way of saying thank you for continuing to stabilize our currency, continuing to purchase our oil, right? There's all kinds of tit for tat deals these guys can do and can use that information. So and again, it's possible that it's cutting the other way. It's possible these are Chinese operators that are then providing that information, some of it, to Russia. The takeaway, though, is again the fact that Belgium and the EU are so impotent to stop it. It's so comical. It's so embarrassing. And again, it on one hand, right, the argument for not deploying further defenses could simply be to say, listen, we don't want to show them. It's like if you're in a bar and somebody starts talking shit and they clearly want to fight you. They're clearly drunk. and you have your concealed carry permit, right? You got a conceal weapon. And you go, listen, I technically I could shoot this guy. But you're like, that would be stupid, right? You go, technically I could pull out the gun and wave it in his face. And you're like, well, that would also be kind of stupid. What if he grabs it, right? What if he has a gun? And so you go, listen, the best strategy is to just say, hey, man, you seem pretty mad. Why don't I buy you a drink and I'm going to go sit 2 bar stools over and you can stop bothering me. Something like that, right? He goes, oh, well, you can't. You can't stop me. You can't. And you go, I could. I just don't want to go through this. I don't want to expose all the tools I have right now to you, right? Because just like a concealed carry, you don't want to pull out a firearm before you're ready to use it, right? Because again, if that person has a firearm, you don't want them to pull it out too. Why give them an advantage? You want to make sure you have maximum surprise in the countermeasures and defensive actions you can take. And that might be the Belgian mentality. Say, listen, we're not going to whip out our drone destroyer stuff unless we're ready to destroy the drones, unless we feel we need to take them out and expose our defensive capabilities. Because as we've just shown, they use a drone jammer and the Russians work to beat it, or whoever, worked to beat it, deployed a new version that now beats that jammer. And now they go, great, well, now the jammers are worthless. The Russians can beat them. So you see how they're trying to avoid an escalating arms race, especially given that, again, the Belgian defense ministry is like, listen, it takes us years to acquire the technology. We're not going to outrun Russia in this drone arms race, so we don't want to walk into it. Anyway, guys, I hope you got some value out of it. Become a member at Combat Vet News. Support me, support the channel, get access to uncensored combat videos. And best of all, if you become a YouTube member, it gives you the same benefits on Combat Vet News. So that big old become a member button, you can slap it, right? And you'll get a login for Combat Vet News to watch those uncensored combat videos, including stuff sent to me straight from units on the front line. So check it out. Thanks to Sergei Zinchenko, Thomas Anderson, William Alex, Yanko Georgiev, and L90. Thanks. See ya. Cheers.